Immigration was one of the defining issues of the 2024 presidential election, and now, with Trump's decisive return to the White House, all eyes are on how far his administration will go to reshape the system. But here's the twist. Trump may have swept the Electoral College, but Republicans have only a narrow majority in Congress. And to make things more complicated, the GOP is divided. On one side, you've got MAGA hardliners pushing for mass deportations. On the other, pro-business conservatives like Elon Musk are fighting to protect high-skilled immigration. Their feud over immigration policy is already making headlines. So, with the party split and America's workforce hanging in the balance, what happens next? This isn't just about politics. It's about families, businesses, and the economic backbone of the country. Welcome to Politics Explained, where we deliver unbiased, unfiltered, and understandable analyses of today's most pressing issues. I'm Jen.
And I'm Bill. Today, we're getting into Trump's immigration agenda, the power players shaping it, and the most likely outcomes as Republicans push for reforms. Who benefits, who faces setbacks, and how will these policies reshape industries, communities, and the U.S. economy as a whole? Let's break it down.
All right, let's start with the big picture. Trump has been vocal about immigration since day one, and this time around, he's not holding back. Bill, what are the key areas where we're going to see the most action?
Well, there's a lot on the table, but let me boil it down to what's coming at us first. Let's start with mass deportations. Trump's team is already laying the groundwork for large-scale removals of undocumented immigrants. We're not talking about small operations here. ICE is set to ramp up in a big way, targeting millions of people. And here's the kicker. Industries like agriculture and construction are going to feel this hard.
Agriculture especially, right? I mean, a huge portion of the workforce is made up of undocumented labor.
Absolutely. The agricultural sector could see massive labor shortages. And it's not just crops, hospitality, construction, even food service all lean heavily on immigrant workers. Start pulling people out, and we're looking at some real economic strain.
It's easy to talk about policies, but when you realize we're discussing millions of livelihoods, that shifts the perspective.
Exactly. And deporting that many people? It's expensive. Estimates put the total cost of large-scale deportations at around $315 billion. That includes enforcement, detention, legal fees, and transportation.
That's a staggering figure. And if you're pulling undocumented workers out of these sectors, you're shrinking the economy in the long run.
Right. Some reports suggest the U.S. economy could shrink by as much as 4.2% if mass deportations play out as planned.
Let's pivot to border security. We know Trump's been adamant about finishing the wall. Bill, how realistic is that this time around?
Realistic? Sure. Whether it's effective is another question. Trump's planning to restart wall construction and boost military presence at the border. That's been part of the agenda from the start. But with limited congressional backing, funding could become an issue again.
I imagine the sanctuary cities fight will heat up too.
Definitely. Trump's targeting sanctuary cities with funding cuts and legal action. That's going to provoke serious pushback from states like California and New York, which have already pledged to resist federal overreach.
Let's shift gears to legal immigration, specifically H-1B visas. Bill, what are we looking at there?
That's where things get tricky. Some Republicans, particularly the pro-business crowd, want to expand high-skilled immigration. Tech leaders like Elon Musk are arguing that cutting H-1B visas will stifle innovation and hurt the economy.
So there's division within the party on this one.
Big time. On one side, you've got the MAGA hardliners who want to slash visas across the board. On the other, the tech and healthcare industries are practically begging for more.
The healthcare angle is huge. Rural hospitals rely heavily on foreign-born doctors and nurses. Cutting visas could leave vulnerable areas even more short-staffed.
Exactly. And that's not just a long-term issue. We're already facing shortages in some areas, and losing skilled immigrants could make things worse.
Bill, let's dive deeper into the factions within the GOP that are shaping Trump's immigration agenda. This isn't just about policy. It's about the philosophical battle brewing within the party.
Absolutely. The Republican Party may hold the reins in Congress, but when it comes to immigration, they aren't rowing in the same direction. This divide runs deep, and the players involved represent two competing visions for America's future.
Let's start with the hardliners, the MAGA faction.
This is Trump's core base. They want sweeping deportations, tighter border controls, and massive reductions in legal immigration. To them, immigration, both legal and illegal, is a threat to American jobs, culture, and security. Their slogan could easily be, "Protect American workers at all costs."
And they've been around since Trump's first term.
Exactly. The key figures here are Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, Laura Loomer, and Coulter. Miller, of course, was the architect behind Trump's more controversial immigration policies, including family separations, the travel ban, and Remain in Mexico.
So, philosophically, they lean toward isolationism and protectionism.
Absolutely. American sovereignty and identity are at the heart of their ideology. They see globalism, open borders, and even skilled immigration as threats to the American worker.
What about their strategy? How do they plan to push this through?
They're relying on Trump's direct influence over his base. Miller and Homan have already drafted policies that can be implemented through executive orders, bypassing Congress entirely if necessary. But they're also using media and social platforms to apply pressure on House Republicans. Loomer, for example, regularly calls out moderates on social media, framing them as weak on immigration.
Now, let's talk about the other side, the pro-business conservatives. This is the faction pushing back against mass deportations and extreme border policies.
Right. This group, which I like to call the economic globalists, is led by figures like Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott. They argue that immigration, especially high-skilled immigration, is essential to maintaining America's economic dominance.
Musk has been very vocal about H-1B visas.
He has. Musk has publicly said that cutting skilled immigration would severely hurt U.S. innovation and give an edge to China. His position is simple. If America doesn't bring in top talent, competitors will.
So their philosophy leans toward global engagement and free markets.
Exactly. These are free market conservatives who believe immigration strengthens the economy, fills crucial labor gaps, and drives technological advancement. But unlike Democrats, they still support border security and enforcement. They just don't see immigration as a zero-sum game.
What's their strategy? How are they countering the MAGA hardliners?
Musk and his allies are using a two-pronged approach. First, direct lobbying. They're engaging with moderate Republicans to protect H-1B visas and guest worker programs. Second, they're mobilizing public opinion. Musk frequently uses social media to frame immigration as an economic necessity. He's playing the long game, appealing to the business community and younger Republicans who align more with economic growth than cultural nationalism.
All right, so we've got two factions, MAGA hardliners and pro-business conservatives. They clearly disagree on immigration, but there must be some common ground.
There is. Both factions agree that, first, border security is necessary. No one is arguing for open borders. Second, they both believe that America faces competition from China, other global powers, and economic trends. Finally, they agree that the immigration system is broken and needs reform.
So it's not like Musk and Miller are fundamentally opposed to securing the border.
Exactly. Where they clash is how to handle legal immigration. The hardliners want to restrict immigration across the board, while the pro-business side says, secure the border, but keep the skilled talent flowing.
Let's dive into the drama. These factions haven't just disagreed behind closed doors, they've clashed publicly. What are the biggest spats we've seen so far, Bill?
One of the loudest battles broke out recently over high-skilled immigration. Elon Musk didn't hold back, arguing that the U.S. faces a critical shortage of engineering talent. He warned that without expanding immigration for top-tier talent, America will lose. That didn't sit well with the hardliners.
I remember Stephen Miller firing back.
He did. Miller doubled down, pushing the America First line. He argued that Musk's approach undermines American workers and insisted that the focus should stay on protecting domestic jobs, not opening the door to more foreign talent.
And that's when Laura Loomer jumped in.
Right. Loomer didn't just weigh in. She escalated things quickly. She blasted Musk on social media, accusing him of betraying American workers to favor cheap foreign labor. But Musk wasn't about to let that go unanswered.
How did Musk respond?
In typical Musk fashion, he brushed it off. He told his followers to ignore trolls, clearly referring to Loomer. And when Loomer's posts were flagged online, she claimed totalitarian censorship and accused Musk of trying to silence her.
It sounds like the gloves are off. This isn't just a policy debate, it's personal.
Exactly. And it highlights just how deep the divide runs. You've got a billionaire tech leader trying to pull the GOP toward economic pragmatism, while figures like Miller and Loomer are doubling down on strict nationalism. The fact that this fight is playing out in public tells you a lot about the future direction of the party.
All right, now that we've laid out the factions driving Trump's immigration agenda, let's get into the scenarios. Bill, based on what we know about these internal GOP divides, what are the most realistic policy outcomes?
There are three main paths we could see unfold, but how far Trump can go depends entirely on how these factions within the Republican Party negotiate or collide. Let's start with the most likely scenario, a partial hardline crackdown. Trump pushes aggressively for border wall expansion, increased ICE raids, and asylum restrictions. But here's the catch. Mass deportations and severe visa cuts will hit roadblocks.
Because of the pro-business wing.
Exactly. The MAGA hardliners, Stephen Miller, Laura Loomer, and that camp, will demand full-scale deportations and deep cuts to legal immigration. But Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the pro-business Republicans will fight to protect H-1B visas and guest worker programs. This is where the fractures become obvious.
So Trump threads the needle. He gives the base what they want on deportations, but not at the scale Miller envisions.
Exactly. We'll likely see targeted deportations focused on criminal records, recent arrivals, and high-profile cases. But the large-scale removal of 10 to 20 million undocumented immigrants? That's unlikely.
So, what does that actually mean for the economy?
Well, sectors like agriculture, construction, and hospitality will feel the heat. We're talking moderate labor shortages that could delay projects and drive up costs, but it won't be catastrophic. Border states, though? They'll feel it more intensely. Local economies in Texas, Arizona, and California could experience temporary disruptions as border enforcement tightens.
And politically?
Politically, Trump scores points with his base. He can say, look, I'm delivering on border security. But the MAGA hardliners might not be entirely happy. Figures like Miller and Loomer will call for more aggressive action, and if Trump doesn't give it to them, you could see frustration bubble up within the GOP. Meanwhile, pro-business Republicans quietly celebrate behind closed doors because they've protected high-skilled immigration.
Sounds like Trump walks away with a win, but maybe not the win everyone was hoping for.
Exactly. It's a compromise that works until the next election cycle.
But this isn't without hurdles.
Right. Moderate Republicans in swing districts will hesitate to back harsh deportation bills. They're thinking about re-election, and they know that going too far risks alienating Latino voters and suburban moderates. Then there's Musk and the pro-business lobby. They'll keep applying pressure, making the case that economic growth depends on immigrant labor. And let's not forget the courts. Civil rights groups like the ACLU will file immediate legal challenges to large-scale ICE operations.
Now, let's explore a scenario where the pro-business Republicans have the upper hand. This one feels less likely but still possible if economic arguments win out.
In this scenario, Trump focuses on border enforcement but expands high-skilled immigration to meet labor demands. H-1B visas increase, and guest worker programs are extended for industries like agriculture and construction. In exchange, Trump secures tougher asylum restrictions and border security funding.
So it's a deal. Musk and the tech sector get their workers, and the MAGA base gets a tougher border.
Exactly. Musk and his allies frame it as a win for economic competitiveness. The compromise lets Trump tighten the border without triggering large-scale deportations that could harm key industries.
What does this do to the workforce, though?
Well, tech and healthcare thrive. Expanding H-1B visas keeps talent pipelines open, ensuring U.S. companies stay competitive globally. Meanwhile, farmers and small business owners in the Midwest breathe a sigh of relief because they're getting the seasonal labor they need. We avoid major workforce disruptions, and industries stay relatively stable.
And how does this play politically?
Trump wins favor with moderate Republicans and independents, the people who see immigration as an economic necessity, not just a border crisis. But the MAGA crowd? They'll see it as a sellout. Figures like Miller will frame it as a betrayal of America's working class.
So the roadblocks here are pretty obvious.
Absolutely. The hardliners revolt. Stephen Miller mobilizes conservative media to denounce the policy, and MAGA-aligned House members threaten primary challenges against anyone who backs visa expansions. Musk's influence helps, but it's a risky tightrope for Trump. And finally, the gridlock scenario. If the factions within the GOP can't agree, immigration policy could stall. In this case, Trump bypasses Congress altogether and relies on executive orders.
But executive orders only go so far.
Right. Trump could push for border wall funding, reinstate travel bans, and limit asylum seekers, but the scope is limited, and the courts would step in quickly.
That creates uncertainty, right?
It does. Businesses pause hiring, farmers hedge, and tech leaders slow recruitment from abroad. The political fallout isn't as immediate, but the economic ripple effects are felt across sectors.
So the real battle happens in the courts?
Exactly. Expect legal battles to drag out for months, if not years.
So, what did we learn today? Trump's immigration agenda is back in full force, but the real fight isn't just between Republicans and Democrats. It's within the GOP itself. We're watching a tug-of-war between MAGA hardliners demanding mass deportations and pro-business conservatives like Elon Musk, who see immigration as vital to America's economic future. The stakes? Millions of undocumented immigrants could face deportation. Industries reliant on foreign talent, like tech and healthcare, could be upended, and the U.S. economy itself may shrink if Trump's harsher policies come to pass. But make no mistake, the divide within the GOP isn't going away. How this plays out will shape labor markets, border enforcement, and America's global standing for years to come.
And this fight extends beyond immigration. It's a battle for the soul of the Republican Party between economic pragmatists and cultural nationalists. Immigration is just one front in this larger war, and it's a preview of the policy battles we're going to see over the next 4 years.
So, as we head into the next phase of Trump's presidency, we'll be here to break down every twist, turn, and policy shift.
If today's episode left you with more questions or insights, head to the comments. We want to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
This is Politics Explained, where neutrality meets clarity and critical thinking. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.